Hello and welcome to Topical Top 10s here on the Football 365 show. I'm your host, Mark Smith, and I'm here with Matt Stead. Matt, what's our top 10 for this week, please?
Hello, Mark. Our top 10 this week is the top 10 players in the Premier League who desperately need to be upgraded.
Desperately needs to be upgraded. Okay, interesting. I feel like we're leaving ourselves wide open here for criticism about us being upgraded. But who could you get this better?
I think our haircuts definitely need to be upgraded, as
They could
far
be
as I can
upgraded.
see.
But as far as I can tell, we are the new Keys and Gray, and that is how it's going to stay, I think, I hope. We'll
Which
see.
one are you?
Don't worry about it. There are some good choices in this top 10. Lindelof gets a mention, and of course, Kepa gets a mention. So, yeah, enjoy the show. It's a good one. Bye. Right, let's crack on then, Matt. Number 10, we've got Yerry Mina.
We do have Yerry Mina. Yeah, he's one of three Everton centre-halves who are experienced and senior, alongside Michael Keane and Mason Holgate. And Holgate is currently out. So they've only got those two. The rest of them are kind of... The backups are more youth team players. They've not really got a lot of playing time for the first team, like even for lower league clubs on loan. And I know Carlo Ancelotti's already he's already come out and said that Everton are going to sign a new centre-half. I don't really know who they're targeting. It's not really come out too much. But they definitely need, especially watching Everton against West Brom. Everton look brilliant so far this season. They look great in attack. And they've already shown that they can kind of revolutionise an entire position with the central midfield stuff. They've completely changed that with Rodriguez, Allen and Decore in one transfer window.
Yeah.
And like I say, when you watch them against West Brom, as good as they were, defensively, they still look a little bit suspect. They've not got that mobility between Mina and Keane. So I think Keane signed a 5-year contract last month. So that would suggest that Mina's kind of the one who...
Keane's the one who's staying for sure, isn't he? Mina seems to be one of those players who still sort of seems to be dining out on the fact he scored against England in a major tournament. So we all know him because we all hate him from that. But I think he has improved, but I think you're right. I think they need to strengthen if they're going to keep that defence up with the rest of the team, essentially. Right, let's move on to number 9. It's, it's a player that West Ham aren't really enjoying watching at the minute. It's Aaron Cresswell.
Yeah, I've got an excellent Aaron Cresswell stat for you, Mark. Are you interested?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Here we go. Right, so Aaron Cresswell, the only player who started more Premier League games for West Ham than Aaron Cresswell is Mark Noble.
What? What, in this current side, you mean?
No, in history. What? Premier League history.
Aaron Cresswell, the same Aaron Cresswell. Wow, okay. Well, that's that. I mean, okay, so he's a West Ham stalwart. Why does he need replacing?
Because he's not very good, basically.
Yes,
he was signed by Allardyce, and I think he won West Ham's Player of the Season his first season, and he was genuinely quite good when they signed him from Ipswich. But just over the years, he's kind of deteriorated to the extent that Arthur Masuaku is kind of competing for that left-back spot, and he's not. He's more of a left wing-back. He's more of the attacking side stuff.
Yes,
whereas
absolutely.
Cresswell, I mean, 3 or 4 years ago, Cresswell was kind of in the England setup. He was a decent player. He's always been a solid Premier League player, but West Ham just desperately need to upgrade in that position now, I think.
Yeah, he's one of those. I think you're right. I think he started well. He looked quite, not Andy Robertson, but he'd bomb up that left side and he would get balls in. He looked quite solid going forward. But at the back, he's always been a bit of a liability. So, yeah, all right. Well, I don't really believe that stat you gave me, but there it is. Number 8, Eric Dier. Now, is this Eric Dier centre-back Eric Dier, or is this Eric Dier defensive midfielder Eric Dier?
I think that's the point, really. I think at the minute he's currently centre-back Eric Dier, isn't he? But even if you kind of take into account the central midfield thing, I don't think in either position he is that top quality player that a club like Spurs, who are supposedly after trophies, I mean, they won't be competing for the title in the next couple of years or so, but if they're appointing Jose Mourinho, that's kind of the end goal. And I don't think with Dier you're going to get that, whether he's a centre-half or a central midfielder.
Yeah, so another thing here, so you've got, with Spurs, you've got Alderweireld and Dier. There's no pace between the two of them. We've had it with Yerry Mina and Michael Keane, and I've got a feeling we might have it later on as well with the Manchester United centre-back. But it definitely is worth repeating. If you're going to have a strong centre-back who will go for the first ball, you do tend to need a more mobile guy alongside him, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's a case of kind of I mean, against Southampton, especially when it was a good ball, but it was a simple ball over the top from Walker-Peters. And it was a great run from Ings, great control and a great finish. But you saw Dier, he was completely flat-footed. He was the wrong side of him. Sanchez was the exact same. So I think if you're going to have a pairing like that as well, maybe you need three at the back, which is what Dier has suited in the past. And maybe you need a better defensive midfielder. But I suppose the shortcut would be just to sign a better centre-half than either of them.
Yeah. Costs a lot of money, though. Costs a lot of money at the minute, and there's not that many of them about. Again, more of which later. Number 7, we've got Sheffield United's David McGoldrick.
Yeah, I've got a Sheffield United stat for you here, Mark. Are you interested?
What's happening? Why have you researched so much?
I don't know, mate. I'm not really sure what's happened this week.
Okay, carry on. I like this new improved Matt Stead.
I'm not sure about improved news. News probably fair. So yeah, the Sheffield United stat is basically that no team has finished in the top half with their top goal scorer scoring 6 goals or fewer until Sheffield United last season.
Oh wow, okay. So no team's ever got top 10 and had their top goal scorer score less than 6 or less. Yeah, okay. So David McGoldrick is a striker who doesn't score goals. They are apparently looking at Rhyan Brewster from Liverpool. Tell me, how would Chris Wilder's system work with a striker like Brewster rather than McGoldrick, someone who's so selfless?
It'd be interesting to see, because Brewster, we've only seen kind of flashes of him. We saw him obviously at Swansea last season. He was absolutely brilliant for that kind of second half of their championship campaign. He's not really had much of a chance for Liverpool, and he's kind of been in the England youth team setup. So we don't know a massive amount about him in terms of like the layman who won't be watching scouting tapes and stuff. So it would be interesting, because obviously with Wilder's system, I think it is unfair to kind of pinpoint one striker there, because McGoldrick wasn't scoring, but neither was Billy Sharp, Mousse, McBurnie. And I don't think the system is really designed. It's similar to, I mean, it's completely different, but it's similar to Liverpool's in that the centre forward for Liverpool is not defined by his goals. You don't judge Firmino by how many goals he scores. It's to do with how he suits the team, how he kind of accentuates every other player's strengths. And I think that's similar for Sheffield United in terms of their strikers doing that. So it would be interesting for Brewster. I think he's very much a different player to the 4 strikers that they've currently got. And I think it'd be interesting to see if Wilder changes the formation or the system a little bit to kind of suit him. But I think he could be definitely a success. There's a reason that Klopp clearly does rate him, but they've got 3 strikers there. You're not going to budge for a while.
But it also sounds like they're going to have a buyback option anyway, which seems to be in the last few weeks a very popular clause to put into contracts over here. Always been popular abroad, but for some reason buyback seems to be talked about a lot. So that would make sense to let him essentially have a longer term loan with an option to get him back if he does have a fantastic season or 2 at Sheffield United, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. That's the thing. It's a case of, as we say, he was great for Swansea in the second half of last season. But we've seen players who excel at championship level for kind of short bursts, but they can't make it. But for Brewster, obviously, he's still very young. As you say, if they're going to get a buyback clause and a sell-on clause, there's a reason that they're negotiating that. There's a reason Liverpool clearly do think a lot of him. It's just that you're not going to get past Salah, Firmino and Mane at the minute.
No, there's no shame in that. Right, number 6, Benjamin Mendy.
Yeah, Mendy's a strange one. It's been 2 years since Man City signed him for all of the money, and you could make a case, to be fair, that he's not even their starting left back. It could still be Zinchenko, who's kind of He was signed as a midfielder. I think it was under Pellegrini, and he was basically shifted into that left back spot like Fabian Delph was before him. So I think, and again, there's a reason why Guardiola has done that. Obviously, with Mendy, he's had his fitness problems. He's got a dodgy knee and stuff like that, which never does help.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for that. I think because he really exploded onto the scene, didn't he, those first couple of months? And then that injury I think some players just take a long time to get over it. Some players never get over it.
That's the nature of that kind of injury. And I mean, like any niggling injury can have a mental impact as well. And especially with a knee injury, if you're out for so long, you're not going to trust that body part for a bit. You're going to be kind of tentatively going into tackles. You're not going to want to sprint at full pelt sometimes.
Yeah, and what happens when you go in half-hearted in a tackle, Matt? What happens? You get injured. That's what happens. And that's
Yeah,
what's
that's
happened
it.
to him for the last 2 seasons. Right, let's move on to another player who has really enjoyed a long career of injuries. It's Andy Carroll.
Yeah, Andy Carroll, who's inexplicably still not only a Premier League footballer, but a Premier League starter in
A
the year of our
starter?
Lord 20. It's absolutely incredible, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
Newcastle,
yeah.
they've signed Callum Wilson this summer, a very good signing. He's started fairly well. They've kind of adjusted the formation a little bit to accommodate him, but also to accommodate Carroll, who is somehow still. I mean, when his competition is Joe Linton, you kind of understand why he is starting games. But then there's the
Yeah.
problem. If they're your two options, then you're just looking to. You have to look to improve at some point.
Yeah, because you could have picked Joe Linton instead of Carroll here, couldn't you? But Carroll, to be fair to him, played very well against West Ham in the first game of the season, and then got hooked at, was it half-time or just after half-time against Brighton?
Yeah.
And Almiron came on, which makes more sense from where I'm sitting anyway, someone who's more mobile. But I love Andy Carroll, another one who's had a nightmare with injuries, but as we've said for the last 10 years, great option off the bench. And
Yes,
that's, I
he
suppose,
should
that's what he
be in the
is.
England squad, shouldn't he? Should be in the England squad.
Yeah, get him in there. Number 4, we've got just the word Robinson. I'm not sure who this is. Who's Robinson?
Have a guess, Mark.
I think it's ex Spurs goalkeeper Paul Robinson.
It is, yes. It's been a while since he's played for
Yeah,
Spurs. But
needs upgrading. Who is it? Who's Robinson?
It's Callum Robinson.
Of course, it's Callum Robinson. So West Brom need a striker.
Yes, West Brom do need a striker, and they've got. I mean, when you look at their squad, the defence is their issue. But when you look further up, and to be fair, midfield's not. It's not really Premier League standard, but further up they've got Grady Diangana and they've got Matthias Pereira. But in the middle, it's there's something lacking there. I mean, Robinson, again, he was at Sheffield United, and again, he wasn't really a striker who was renowned for his goal scoring ability. It was more his pressing on defenders and stuff like that. But he's moved to West Brom. Bilic has obviously clearly seen something in him, and I suppose it's the case that West Brom are shopping in a certain market for strikers. They've already got Charlie Austin there. They've already got Hal Robson-Kanu there, and when they're your central options to be starting games week in, week out in the Premier League, I think you're going to be in trouble.
To stay up, yeah, that is tough. Well, another one maybe that Rhyan Brewster's agent might be having a word with, because he'd suit that style of football. I think West Brom, like you say there, Pereira and Diangana, they look good. They look like really good Premier League players. So just that sharp point at the top of the pitch, and who knows what might happen. Right, we've got top 3 now. Number 3, we've mentioned him already. It is your friend and mine, Victor Lindelof.
Yeah, it's. I mean, there's been a bit of a shift, especially after the Crystal Palace game. There's been a shift in terms of kind of the punditry and the reaction to that. In that, obviously, United have been targeting Jadon Sancho all summer, and now suddenly, after a couple of mistakes against Wilfred Zaha and stuff, everyone's saying that Man United are never going to win the league. Victor Lindelof at centre half.
Very fickle.
That's been the case for 3 years, basically, since he signed. He's never been good enough. He's always been kind of that stopgap that Mourinho brought in. He brought him in, I think it was the year after they brought Eric Bailly in, and they were still searching for that centre half. Obviously, they've got Maguire now. And Maguire's got his faults, but they've spent that amount of money on him. He is their... he's not their club record signing, sorry. It's still Pogba, isn't it? But he's still...
But he's there for the long term. He's not moving anywhere. Yeah. I mean, literally, when you see him play sometimes. But he is... But he is. I'm standing up for Maguire because I really do rate him. I think he's completely regenerated the way that team play from the back and how they defend. But you're right. You can't have Lindelof alongside him because neither one of them can run. But we've known that for ages. That's not a new thing. Plus, when you think about how much improved they were last season defensively, I think they conceded 3 goals more than Liverpool. So they're not terrible at the back. But the nature of the beast is that one poor performance like that, on top of 3 years of not great performances, all of a sudden, the whole media narrative changes, doesn't it? But we're hearing United aren't looking for an upgrade. So what happens next? Who would you go for if you were Manchester United's board?
It's a good question. I think they've been after Koulibaly before, who's obviously a Man City target, and there's a case for Jimenez. I think he's at Atletico now, and they've always been kind of linked with Boateng at Bayern Munich. But I think It's not one of those positions, because you look at Crystal Palace and their options in central defence. It's not like they're players who are worth 60, 70, 80 million. It's something that just requires a bit of decent coaching.
Absolutely.
And whereas
organisation.
Solskjaer's he's very much that kind of arm around the shoulder manager. When United are in form, he'll tell them they're the best player in the world.
Yeah.
And we saw it at the end, to be fair, just after lockdown, where they went on that absolutely insane run, got Champions League qualification. And it was based mainly on that attack, mainly on Martial, Rashford, Fernandes.
Greenwood.
And they're still looking at players to bring into that. But it's that defence that is the issue. And I think the other case with Maguire is that he is, I think it's probably overblown a little bit, but he's a leader and he's very vocal at the back. Whereas Lindelof, he seems like he shirks the responsibility a little bit more.
Yeah, he's quite passive, isn't he? Well, I mean, they'll work it out, or they won't. One of those two things. Number 2, again, you've just got the word Odoi. Is this Dennis Odoi or Callum Hudson-Odoi?
This is Dennis Odoi. Callum Hudson-Odoi doesn't exist at the minute. He's
where is he?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's weird because I think he's an excellent player. I think he's not that far off Sancho, if that's not too mad a thing to say. I think he's a really, really good wide right attacking player.
That's incredible stuff.
Well, you went a bit mute there, so I'm quite pleased about that.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's a huge take. But
it's my take of the day.
That might be for another video.
Yeah. Okay. So why is Dennis Odoi on this list?
Because he's not very good.
Okay. Right.
It's simple as.
No, that's fine. Yeah. Right. Number 1. And this is why it's topical top 10s, really. We've had a really fun weekend. Lots of goals in the Premier League. But this man probably stood out amongst everyone else. It's Kepa Arrizabalaga. And I said that beautifully. Kepa, I mean, I could talk about him all day long, but you go first, Matt. Why is he number 1 on this list?
I was just going to say I didn't realise you were part Spanish, Mark.
Yeah, no, I am, yeah.
Yeah, in terms of Kepa, again, we could just kind of cut it off at he's not very good. I think to be fair to him, as fair as we can be, against Liverpool, there was a bit of a pile on in terms of, I think a few incidents were kind of perceived as mistakes made by him, like the Christensen red card. I know Neville was kind of pinpointing Kepa rushing out of his area for that, but any goalkeeper would do that.
Yep.
And I don't think that's something you can put on the goalkeeper. I think that's something you probably put on the centre half trying to bear hug Sadio Mane as he's running through on goal. I think that's probably Christensen's fault.
That's You can't dig out Kepa on every single thing that happens on a pitch. But what you can do is, and what you probably should do, is highlight when he does make mistakes. But I find it, Matt, we said this before we started recording, as fun as it is to take the mick, I find it very sad to watch. I find it tough to watch because this guy looks like a lost boy who has sort of wandered onto the pitch, and he doesn't seem to have the fundamentals of a grasp of the position. And obviously Chelsea have done their due diligence and they've scouted him to death because they're going to make a 70-odd million quid bid on him. So they've done all that before they make the bid. So they know what they're getting. But you watch it now and you think, I just don't understand what's happened. Is it a complete mental break? Is it just a mistake from the scouting department? Or is it another Ali Dier situation where they've just signed the wrong player? They've got, the agent's been on the phone and the real Kepa's still playing in Italy or Spain or whatever. And this is his cousin who's never played football before. Because if that story broke tomorrow, I wouldn't be that shocked.
No, you'd think Graham Souness was involved somehow, wouldn't you? He's taking a phone call, brown paper bag and that kind of thing. He just looks like a kind of competition winner, doesn't he, Kepa? And I know that there's a few people kind of on social media and stuff who they're a bit more knowledgeable in terms of the goalkeeping side of things. And they're saying that he's not kind of, he does have the fundamentals down. He's not struggling in that aspect of the game, but it's these little mistakes that he makes. And whether it is a case of confidence, whether it is a case, I don't think the Chelsea system helps him. And I don't think the fact that their defence as a whole anyway isn't that good helps. They don't have that leader in central defence. It might help with Thiago Silva coming in, but they don't have, it's the same thing with United. Obviously, we're talking about Maguire being vocal. I don't think Chelsea have that centre half or even a fullback who speaks and who runs everything, who's the leader of that defence. And it's all kind of focused on the attack.
One of the things with lockdown football is that if you switch the channel to the one without any crowd sound, you can hear the players, and it doesn't sound like there's a vocal voice. There's no loud voice in that back five at Chelsea at all. I think you're right about Thiago Silva. I don't know what his English is like, or I don't know anything about that. But you would imagine he's the one who can come in and sort them out. By that point, however, Kepa won't be there, will he? Because they're already looking like they're about to upgrade.
Yeah, they're looking at obviously the Rennes goalkeeper. They've figured out that they signed Peter Cech from there, and they just kind of
do it again.
They're just assuming we'll get a decade or so out of this lad. But to be fair, I think it's a case of you just kind of put anyone into that team, and it will be an upgrade. It will be someone who's doing their job properly. And we've seen Liverpool and City and a few other clubs over the past few years, and I know Chelsea did the same, to be fair, but they've invested money in that position that it's difficult to kind of. It's not the same as coaching defence or coaching attack or coaching midfielders to press or to sit back. It's a specialised position. It's completely different to that in terms of being a goalkeeper. So it's something that Lampard, unless he appoints the right coaches in those positions, and they've got Peter Cech at the club. They've got him in kind of a boardroom role. They've got him in an ambassadorial role. If they get him as a coach, and they could probably bring him out of retirement, stick the helmet on, he'd be absolutely sensational in comparison to Kepa.
Well, the thing you mentioned there, you're right about outfielders. If you're having to run a bad form, you can just run about a bit more, put a bit more effort in, and go for it. And that's a way of trying to placate the fans and just get something going. Whereas with the keeper, you try too hard, you'll make more mistakes. It's so difficult. Yeah. It's all in your head. I have a lot of sympathy with him, because especially like shows like ours, we're coming on taking a piss out of him now on Monday morning. It's tough. It is tough, but he's not good enough, and they do need an upgrade if they're going to get anywhere near that top two. Right, Matt Stead, we've overrun by miles as we normally do. That was lovely. Thank you for being here and being my guest. Thank you at home for watching it. This has been Topical Top 10s on the Football 365 show. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us. It's the editor at football365.com. Until next week, goodbye.